Ohio. We're high on Ohio. These stories inform and inspire through the words of people who make Ohio home. Good news and good ideas, identifying and acknowledging the excellence that is all around us. This is Gene Krebs. I'm here today on behalf of the Center for Community Solutions. We're interviewing Lisa Hamler-Fugitt, who is the Executive Director of the Ohio Association of Food Banks. And a little departure from our normal thing here, we're going to do a little thing of book review. So you want to tell us a little bit about this book that's influencing your thinking right now?
And I understand that you know the authors.
Yes,
So
I've met them both. I wouldn't say that we're best buds,
okay.
but we've chatted before in the past.
Not on the New York bestseller list. Is it New York Times bestseller list? But one, I think for...
All of we Policywonks are very familiar with this book.
Okay, which is great. Brookings Institute on Confronting Suburban Poverty in America, and I think this is the greatest challenge. Well, you talked about myth versus fact. Most folks believe that those who are poor live in our urban cores.
Right.
And in fact, they don't.
And they're increasingly, it's suburban, and this suburban has a high innate cost to it.
It does. And what we find is that there aren't the social service organizations or the infrastructure in suburban areas.
Right.
Certainly just in a decade, we have seen very affluent communities, even here in Columbus, who are now confronting poverty in their communities as a result of the Great Recession, the loss of jobs, loss of health. They're holding on to the homes. That's the last thing to go.
Yeah.
Until the sheriff knocks on the door. But it also has so many other implications, certainly for their tax base, but more importantly, the challenges that are facing them in their schools right now.
Yeah. While we're talking about research and all this, we're going to go off in the Policywonk world here for a moment, which it means a whole lot of people are just going to do this. Turn it off. Ruby Payne has done a lot of research about the culture of poverty and how to go ahead and break all of that. And there's a lot of work out there. David Rusk, son of Dean Rusk, came out with an excellent book about a decade ago called Inside Game, Outside Game. And in there he talked about the fact that, dispersed affordable housing, basically housing that reflects, you mentioned before Ozzie and Harriet are gone. Mm-hmm. But when we had Ozzie and Harriet, the boys of the Ozzie and Harriets were raised in a community where it was a good cross-section. There was the banker kids went to the school, and the janitor of that bank, his children went to that same school. Now everybody lives in these economic demographic ghettos, basically. And it's sprawl, it's how we've chosen to build. So how do we break this insular attitude that we have? I mean, writers from the left like Bill Bishop in The Big Sort, Charles Murray, Coming Apart, are both writing about this. This is something that both the right and the left are coming to recognize is a huge problem. And so confronting suburban poverty in America, people kind of go, what do you know? But we're losing this ability to communicate to each other across these various lines. How do you think we kind of combat this a little bit? Everybody give themselves a book by Brookings, or?
Walk a mile.
Okay.
There by the grace of God go I.
Mm-hmm.
We have certainly become disconnected even in our own communities of who our neighbors are. Used to be a time that we were our brothers and sisters' keepers. But because of the income inequity and disparities that have grown, people, again, it goes to, while I may be a low-income working mother, I want the best for my kid. And if I have to move to a suburb where housing costs are much more, and that's consuming 80% of my income, but once they get into those communities, they quickly realize that they are different. We can't judge each other by the amount of money we get in our paycheck or where we came from. The other thing, we do poverty simulations here because it's very easy for individuals who have made it to pass judgment.
And forget how they got there.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So what I say is walk a mile.
You know, this, I have not thought about this for years, but I remember when I was a boy, in our little rural community, whenever you'd have too much sweet corn, which was always a problem, too much zucchini, which was another always constant problem, my mother would just gather up several shopping bags and take them to families that she knew, and there was no, she said, look, we've got so much excess, and then later on they would drop off, you know, maybe some excess out of their garden. But it was a unspoken thing everybody kind of tried to look at, but we knew these people, or we were related to these people, and so that changed the context a lot. I was raised in a community that was very various, and my wife is from a classic suburb on the east side of Cleveland, where every father went to work, all the mothers were staying home. Every father was an engineer, lawyer, chemist, or middle-level mafia manager. Okay, that's what it was. And she came down to the farm. It was a radically different way of looking at things and interacting with people.
And I think that that's important for those of us who grew up with those experiences to teach and demonstrate those experiences. You know, I recently have moved. Now I'm a country girl. I live south of Lancaster, but have always lived in the city or in a suburb. And we need to get reconnected with who our community is. As I say, you know, hunger in Ohio is just 6 doors down.
Yeah.
And you might be surprised that it looks a whole lot like you.